I don't think you can imagine how expensive it would be to hire an off-duty sheriff's deputy to dress up like Santa Claus and serve your wife's divorce papers at 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Believe me, it's not cheap, but it's worth every penny. When we met behind the garage, he was already in character as Santee. He was just perfect. The man had his own suit, including shiny black patent leather boots. Even his white hair and beard were real. And his eyes, how they twinkled. His dimples were so cheerful, his cheeks flushed like roses, his nose was the color of a cherry. Deputy Lieberman provided ample padding over his clothes, and his round belly shook like jelly in a bowl. Hell, he looked real. Are you 100% sure you want to continue? In response, I handed him a briefcase full of envelopes and pointed to a bag full of presents. I'll see you inside in 5 minutes. Our house was full of friends and relatives. They had been eating and drinking for over 3 hours. Laughter echoed everywhere. Friendships were renewed. Everyone was having a great time. Drinks flowed and funny stories were told. Christmas Eve at the McMillions was not to be missed. And I, the good host, had a heart blacker than the blackest coal and as evil as the Grinch. My marriage was dead, and only the demand for revenge kept me moving. The floor clock in the living room chimed 8 times. Everyone knew what it meant. The grandchildren shrieked when Santa knocked on the front door, and it was so loud that even after 5 minutes my ears were still ringing. The bells were ringing, and Ho 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 roared so loud it even overpowered the noise as he dragged his bag of goodies into our foyer. I greeted Santa Claus with a hearty handshake and escorted him to the chair of honor in front of the brightly lit Christmas tree. Our 4 children gathered all 10 grandchildren to sing "Here Comes Santa Claus" with glee. I arranged for a good friend to videotape the celebration. I smiled at him and he gave me a thumbs up. Santa opened the bag, pulled out a perfectly wrapped gift and announced, "William Jr., have you been a good boy?" From the youngest to the oldest, everyone took turns jumping into his lap, swearing they had been good, and demanding a reward. A talking doll for Kristana, a video game for Samuel. There was ankle-deep wrapping paper and torn ribbons scattered on the floor. Then it was the adults' turn to receive their gifts. I announced, "Don't open your present until Santa Claus is gone, or you will destroy the surprise, and no one under the age of 18 is allowed to be here. This is for adults only." This really got the attention of those present. You all have to open your envelopes at the same time. Everyone posed for a photographer and received a red or green envelope with their names printed in gold letters. I heard the wildest speculations about what might have been inside the envelopes. Many hoped for family vacations in warm places. I tried to keep a calm expression on my face, knowing that each of them had a coffin nailed to my family. For weeks earlier, I had learned that my wife, with whom I had lived for 20 years, the mother of my children, was sleeping with her boss. I won't bore you with how I found out about such meanness. Suffice it to say, I didn't believe it until the detective I hired handed me pictures of the evidence. And now each envelope contained 6 of these high-quality photographs, each suitable for showing the adulterous relationship between Trent Jackson and my now ex-wife. I resisted the temptation to enclose in the envelopes copies of DVDs of greatest hits showing these 2 sleeping in several places, including our marital bed. No, that would only be played in court. One by one our kids would come up to me and say, "Daddy, you really did pretty good this year." My favorite daughter was our youngest Margie. "Daddy, I'll remember this night forever." "Yes, honey, I'm sure you will." Carol, my ex-wife, looked as excited as the kids when she was finally named. The whore had the nerve to sit on his lap and kiss him. Her envelope was the biggest and thickest of all. Santa asked, "Are you Carol J. McMillion?" She laughed and said, "Of course I am." He didn't bother to ask if she was a good girl because he knew what was in the envelope. He handed her a bright red envelope and said, "Carol J. McMillion, you have been served." She kissed him again and said, "Thank you, Santa." He began gently pulling her off his lap and headed for the door. My lawyer told me I'd lost my mind when I told him about my plan. Save your money, you'll need it to pay my bill. I'm glad I didn't listen to him. My revenge was close, and I felt good. One of my granddaughters handed Santa a bag of goodies for him and some carrots for his reindeer. Before he left, he whispered in my ear, "I hope you know what you're doing." I grabbed my jacket and shouted, "Merry Christmas to you and good night, everyone." Santa was so good, I almost expected to see a reindeer harness as I walked the man in red to his car. I would advise you to leave before your family opens the envelopes. In the afternoon, I stashed my suitcases in the trunk and was ready to roll into my Christmas. There was an empty hotel room waiting for me downtown. I started my car and watched Santa drive off the driveway. I didn't think their scream could be any louder than my grandchildren's, but I could hear the adults' voices as loud as bells. I hurried away into the dark night.